to get some explanation of an estimate of proceeds. And there's in my mind, there's at least two times that you should use an estimate of proceeds. And one of those is when you're listing the property, so that you give the people some kind of explanation of, if you list at this price, this should be approximately your bottom line. One thing you should always talk about is don't say proceeds without saying estimate. Okay, so it's always an estimate when we do it because we don't know all the final facts and stuff. So it's always an estimate of proceeds. So you do it in the process of listing, as you gather information from them, whether or not you can, get their payoff from them and that kind of stuff. So you do it then, and then also, in my mind, if you have a listing on the market and you get an offer on that listing, then you do an estimate of proceeds based on the details of that offer. Because then you're communicating, because offers, maybe it's got $1,500 worth of closing costs in it, or the closing date is different, or, there's factors about it. So you can fine tune your estimate of proceeds to that specific offer and let them see what you got. So those are at least two instances that you should be doing an estimate of proceeds and giving people some information, because our job is never to make a decision for somebody, but it's always to make sure that they have the facts and information they need to make a well-informed decision about what they're going to do. So that's our position, is like, we need to make sure they have all the stuff, we need to have all the stuff for them and make sure they have that and their questions answered and everything, so that when they make a decision, it's fully informed decision on what's going on about selling or not selling sometimes. When you do an estimate of proceeds and go, you got an extra $5,000 that you can bring to the table, because that's what it's going to take to close. And surprisingly enough, some will say yes. I mean, if you're looking at $5,000 negative position on your estimate of proceeds, and their payment is $2,000 a month, they might go, I'd rather just get it sold and get it off, because I'm going to spend that money anyway, mostly on taxes and interest that they get no benefit from. So why not sell it and get it over with? Stop the pain, stop all the stuff going on. So anyway, we're gonna go over and do a couple just ideas to see where we're at and what questions we have of that, so that hopefully this will have some benefit to you as we move forward. I think there's two there. I didn't get them separated. So when you're doing an estimate of proceeds, obviously it starts with your market analysis and where the price range. Now, what we tend to do is we look at the market analysis, and when you're doing one of those, of course, you come down and you get kind of a range, because nobody's like dead on. Unless if you're in a condo association and there's been 10 sales in the last 6 months and they're all for a certain price, be like, okay, we're probably going to sell it for that because that's what's going on. Hey, how about that? So outside of that, you're going to be, having some kind of a guesstimate of what pricing ought to be. And so we use in dot loop, you have a double line estimate of proceeds, so that you can work a couple of prices or work each end of the range, that kind of thing. Because people don't understand how much difference changing the price makes, And so we start with that. We start off with what we believe our sale price is going to be. Now, on the listing side of it, you may choose to use a list price and in a proposed sale price, or use two different listing prices. I think it's complete vanity, but I like to try to do one that says this is what I think it will sell for, so they can see those actual numbers. And that's just, studying through the market and looking and, because maybe you're gonna list it at 165 and you think maybe you get 162 with a couple thousand closing costs would be a good final resolution, in the offer process. So those are things to use there. And so if we start there, and what we're going to do is we'll do this one. We've got a sale price of 125,000. So that's what we're going to put in there for sale price. Now, if you know a mortgage balance, that's a great thing to have, and hopefully, you're getting that information from your sellers so that you can utilize that. And if you know that, then you put that in on the next line. And for this one, let's see if we actually have a mortgage balance on this one. I don't think so. Oh, no, we don't have a mortgage balance on this one. So they owned it, and that's why they didn't owe any money on it. So if you have a mortgage balance, then you put that in the next one. And if they have a second mortgage, of course, that's a good time for you to know right up front, instead of finding a second mortgage on a title opinion. That's always like a, oops, there's an extra 20 grand coming out of this, and proceeds only worth 18,000. So that's always a good thing to know. Now, taxes. Who knows exactly how taxes work? I see the hands flying out.
Paid in arrears.
Yeah, I'm going to give you some things that you can tell people that will help you communicate with them on how things work. Because especially you get like old farts like us, we say, well, I just paid my damn taxes. Last week I paid them up current, paid them full. I should know anything. And so then you have to have the knowledge and understanding to be able to communicate to those people that the day they paid them on March 30th, they were then 9 months behind at that point. Now this is, unless they're really older people, and you got to watch out because a lot of them pay both payments in September. So you always got to ask, are you paying this on 6-month increments, or do you pay it, because it changes the whole thing. If they pay the whole thing September when taxes first come due, if they pay the whole thing, then it changes your balance out a little bit. So it's always a good question to go. And one thing too is, are they being paid by escrow? And if they're paid by escrow, of course they're getting paid every 6 months.
Right.
But people who own their house outright and stuff like that, they'll just they get it, it's on top of their mind, just done, send both payments in, it's over with for for a year. So always ask that question. So one of the lines that you tell people is I understand you just paid your taxes. And because of the way we do taxes, they're in what we call in arrears, which means they are paid based on last year's assessment. They're paid, in essence, a year behind. And so what happens is when you pay a payment, you're then 9 months, and then it goes until it hits 15 months, and then that's when you make your next payment, your 6 months payment, and it goes back to 9 months. So your margin of error, if you're doing estimate of proceeds, you can really limit your margin of error just by putting 12 months taxes in there. It's really easy, So if you want to just put 12 months taxes in there, then the worst case scenario is that you're off 3 months, either 3 months to the good or 3 months to the bad. That's the worst case scenario. Hopefully you'll go away from here and you'll feel a little bit better about how to figure those. So, wish we had a tripod with it.
Oh, yeah.
Do we have something like that?
We sure
Oh, sweet. That'd be
Let's
awesome.
say it and it will just.
Yeah, man, I guess this is awesome. Do we actually have a thingy to write with, dude?
Yeah, markers.
Man, you just talk around back and shit happens, or stuff happens. Sorry, audience. So when you're doing taxes, they get all complicated and people get all, wallowing in all of the stuff because, they're like, well, pay my first half taxes. Well, your first half taxes are paid in September. So then you get, it's like, okay, that's not the first half if you paid, the first of the year. And so you get all those things and when it's assessed and when it comes due and, when the new assessment comes out, and when do you pay taxes for that? Because they reassess property in January, it's reassessed in January for the taxable year that starts July 1st and goes through the next June 30th, and then that part is payable that following September. Everybody totally confused? But that's how it happens. So, sweet, look at it, we're getting all fancy here. But I'm going to show you a couple of things, one for figuring out and explaining how those things work. And so the taxes are done like this. So 1/1/16 is the assessment. Okay, that's when they look at it and say, okay, as of that date, this is how much that house is worth. Okay, so they determine that. Then the taxes start accumulating. Remember we said in arrears? Oh, well,
Bigger one.
bigger. I like that. So because they're paid in arrears, taxes actually have to accumulate before we pay them. Okay, so it's like interest on a mortgage. You don't pay the mortgage forward. You pay it behind because the interest accumulates. Then you pay the interest. Okay, so the taxes start accumulating. They start on 7/1/16 and through 6/30/17. Okay, that's how that goes. And then these taxes, based on this assessment, 1/1/16, they start getting paid on September 2017. Okay? Now, most times this doesn't come into play. But what happens in new construction? We just had one come through, and it was like in a tax abatement area in Pleasant Hill with a partial first year assessment. And then it was like, okay, what happens? So, it can get real complicated. You got to think it through simply. If you think it through simply, you know that the partial assessment that was put on that property on January of 16 is going to start accumulating taxes in July of this year, and then it's going to have its first payment, which is the first abated payment, in September of 17. Okay, so now I know, yes, it's assessed at, it was partial assessed at $249,000 as of January. So I know that in this first payment, it's going to be the $249,000 in the abatement process, and they're all different between Bondurant and Altoona and Des Moines and Pleasant Hill and Adel and Polk City and so I can talk to them about that and go, okay, here's the deal. But it's only partially assessed, so what happens? Next year, we'll get a full assessment on 1/1/17. It'll go all the way to the full assessment value. And a second tax abatement will start on that, and it will run concurrently with this. So the first payment will have tax abatement in 2017, and that'll run for 5 years. And in the 6th year, there'll be a finish of the other tax abatement that's going to run boom, 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 boom through that period. Does that kind of make sense? Okay, so it's just have a mindset of like how they work. They get assessed, they start accumulating, they get paid. Okay, that's how it works. Now, I'm going to show you how to explain taxes and figure them out. And after you do it a few times this way, you'll get rid of the crutches of like, open up, where's that paper that I put that has the months and how many months that means and that kind of stuff, you know, so get rid of that crutch so you can talk to people. I had to do this to an attorney because he absolutely said that, no way, that's not how the taxes are figured. I'm like, yes, they are, you know. So it's a real easy little thing. And so you do J, let's see, J, 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 J. And so these are obviously the months, January, July, December, all right? And then you do this. Okay? Those are the payable periods, correct? So now, the year in the middle is the current year you're in. Okay? So you put the current year in the middle. You've probably never seen this either. This hardly anybody shows this anymore. Okay? So pick a date that a house is closing right now. Who's got one?
June 21st.
I'm sorry?
June 21st.
June 21st. Okay, so we're gonna mark that out. This is gonna be right here, right? This is 6/21. Okay, that's right there. Okay, so we see, okay, that's where it is in the run. Now we look and say, okay, when were taxes last paid? Taxes were last paid
March.
in March. That's what the points are, March and September. Taxes were last paid, and you draw an arrow. Those taxes paid in March paid that 6 months bracket. Okay? So they were paid in March, that's the last time. So I got a closing in June. So that means I've got this 6 months plus January through June 21st. Make sense? So that's how you do it. And it's really that easy. And if you use this a couple times, actually draw it out and use it. And you know, put your closing date down, do it, you know, real methodically. And pretty soon you'll stop and you'll go, okay, June 21st, tax paid like that, 6 months, 2015, January through closing date. That's my taxes due.
My question for that, I've had people that, you know, I've gone over this, I've explained it, they don't believe me, they paid it,
Sure.
you know, but they haven't sold a house ever,
Right.
you
Oh,
know?
sure.
And so I explained that's what their sellers did. Would this number come up on like their good faith estimate from their lender, or, you know, or is there another
No.
person that they would hear this
Justify
from
it, yeah.
besides me, because I don't know what I'm doing, obviously.
If you do this, they'll start being, because as soon as you start talking about this, and then, you know, you have a handle on this and you talk about it, and you say, you know, I mean, yeah, the taxes are set, first half is September through, and second half, and you start throwing stuff like that, and pretty soon they're like, oh, yeah, she knows a lot more than we do.
Yeah.
You know, and so you can always go back to, it's like, here's how it works. In our state, taxes are paid in arrears.
I sent them like,
You know.
videos and
Yeah,
links from like, you know.
exactly. Yeah, and some are just going to resist it.
Yeah.
And all you can do is say, this is what's going to happen. That's what's going in there, and then it will come on their closing disclosure. It will be there.
Okay.
And the closer you are, the better.
I think talking about this and estimate of proceeds right from the start gets them thinking about
Absolutely.
that way they have some issues along the
Absolutely.
way, they can kind of do their investigation and do their research.
Sure.
But I think referring to the new construction example really kind of gets people thinking about how the taxes are accumulated from the start of a new house.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because you don't pay the taxes when you buy that house.
Oh, no. No, I mean,
People kind of start to think about
yeah, I mean, you could buy a house that was finished, and, you know, it was finished in March of a year, and you bought it, closed, and moved in, they had not partially assessed it in January of that year, so the first assessment is until January of the next year, so the first tax payment isn't until September of that year. So, I mean, you can not pay taxes, basically. You pay a little lot tax, or ag tax if it's a development. You get that, $12 a year tax on some of those until it gets assessed. And so, yeah, you can drag it out to where you don't actually have a tax payment for, what is that, 19, 20 months that you can not have a tax payment. So that's really important. But when I talked with people and drawn this out for them and showed it to them, say, here's how it works. We're closing on June 21st. The last payment you made was in March. That payment paid this portion. So that leaves this 6 months, and then from here to the closing date. That's how it works. You still got a puzzled look.
When's the second payment? When's there's one payment September, when's the other payment?
March.
Okay.
March 30, September 30. They are delinquent after that date. They actually are due as soon as they're on the books, but they're delinquent on that date. And then you get into all this crazy stuff about, taxes. And so we know approximately what the taxes are going to be for next year, but they're not spread on the books yet. So we don't even know what we're going to pay in September yet. Because they have the assessment, then they have the state rollback, and then they have whether or not it's homestead is filed on the property. And all of those things come off of it. And if you're older, there's some like assistance, things that VA can be on there. And so none of that is determined until, sometime during the year after the assessment, it gets determined, and it gets what's called certified and spread on the books. That's the old terminology for it, because they used to actually write them down.
And this is all on the assessor page, so Polk County assessor page. Like, we were curious if somebody paid it in full and they didn't know.
Yes.
Like, we would probably be able to go back and see their payments.
You can go to the assessor. There's so much on the assessor page, it's crazy. If you're looking for tax abatement areas, if you're looking for what different areas charge, as far as their taxes, their rates, that kind of stuff, that's all in there. It's, you get some free time, spend some time on the assessor page, because it's mind-boggling. And you can go in to the estimate taxes, and what it does is show you the next year estimate of what they're going to be, and it tells you what years they're paid. That's another way you can do is you can say, here is the assessor page estimate, and it shows right on there, due, payable, when it goes. And it's actually, so that's a third party that you could use to say, this is how it's, this is how it's going. Well,
my clients love me.
Well, you know what, it's one of those things, and don't take offense at this, but you're young. And so when you're younger, people just are like, well, how would she know?
My birthday's Saturday.
Yeah. I totally get it. But it's just that thing where, and of course for me, I trust young people because they're much smarter than I am. So it works wonderfully. So that's the process of proration. So by just looking at that chart, let's say I have a closing on November 1st. What's the proration?
Well, taxes paid in September, so you got that as your start point.
Okay. Anybody got a guess? November 1st closing, how many months?
7, 8.
11.
Close.
12.
10.
10.
Yeah. Through October, 10 months, because
January.
this is paid. So then you start at the year and you go down to the closing date. 10 months. Okay, you see what I mean? You kind of think through this and you're like, okay, that's been paid. We're after September 30, you know, so that should be paid. So then you're on, you know, so, you know, on September 30th, it gets paid and you closed October 1st, you know, it's going to be through September, 9 months. So that's how this chart, if you'll draw that out and actually work with it just a little bit, it'll start coming to you in your mind. And at the beginning, you'll close your eyes and actually see the chart and think about it. And then after a while, it's just automatic. But this is the easiest explanation I know of learning it and then explaining it, is to do this chart. Okay? Other questions about tax preparation?
I have just a quick question about the technology part of it. When I sold in Minnesota, our forms with Edina Realty would auto-populate
Yes.
a lot of the information in there. And so, I mean, our taxes were paid normal.
Yeah.
And so all you'd put in was the close date, and then it would just, you know,
Yeah.
calculate out.
Yeah.
So, you know, since we know this information, is there any way that, being with Remax here, we can change the, you know, get these forms? I mean, that's kind of a technology piece.
All we need is somebody who is an Excel spreadsheet, you know,
Yeah.
person that really understands it.
Yeah, so this is just a Word document. Well,
okay.
I mean, it's got like a table in it, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Ads and stuff.
So it has it, but I think, is it the table inside Word is what's using it?
I thought so, I don't know, I didn't.
Because I thought this
the
was
original.
Excel with a background Excel
Oh, maybe that's-
word on it, because, you know, because it does figure a couple of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally agree. And it's a little weird, but, you know, it's certainly doable, because I can go into my phone on my calculator and put in,
Yep.
you know, I can figure a payment that includes taxes and insurance and everything, because all I do is put those things in and it tells me.
Mhm.
You know, so, I mean, if your phone can do that, certainly.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
that's,
a-
but
that's a
the one thing
direction.
I would say is then as people are doing it more and more and more, you'll never know how to actually do
Well,
it,
and
whoever
that's
needs to
the-
explain it.
Yeah.
That's the thing, but, you know, on that thing too, that's also saying kids don't know how to do math because they use
Right.
calculators, and that's really not true.
Right.
You
You
know?
still have to be able to explain,
you have to-
obviously, all
yeah.
the, you know, which is why I think we're here
But I
today.
totally agree, and we've actually gone backwards. When I was newer in the business, we had better estimate of proceeds forms than we do now. So we've actually kind of gone backwards. And the only reason we had better is because we had a guy in our office, and he was just a nerd, and so he just messed around. Pretty soon he had one of these all drawn up and set, and he shared it with all of us, and we got to use it. You know, but yeah, I totally agree. We could do something with that. So once you get your taxes figured out, is everybody good with that? Yeah. Okay, reasonable. Once you get your taxes figured out, now, and then it's up to you if you want to go in, if you're like me and you get nerdy about this and you want current taxes and prorated taxes so that you can show that, you know. So, you know, it's, and the current taxes is it taxes that are owed? So like if you had a closing, down here in the bottom part of the year, you'd be paying taxes, and then there would actually be 6 months of owed taxes. You know, so they would be due but not delinquent. You know, so you can do it that way, or you can just pick a single number and go with it and say this is the full tax amount. You know, so it's totally up to you which way you go with that. Then we get into abstracting. Abstracting now has, in the last 2 years, has really gone up in cost. And I've seen them, probably the lowest that I've seen, about 400 was the lowest that I've seen abstracting lately. And then I've seen it without being, you know, creating a new abstract or anything. I've seen them up close to 700. And there's a factor with that, and I think Jamie's going to get our pricing sheet from Bill.
Oh, okay.
Because
Yeah, we don't have
he
that.
actually has a pricing sheet that we put out, but it has to do with how much they're having to bring the abstract up. So if you had somebody like this, one of these here that I was talking about is they had been in the property for 30 years. Had never refinanced it, had never done anything to it. So they literally were building, through searches, they were building that 30 years worth of abstract. And had to search and get any mortgages that were put on, and then any releases, all that. They have to get all that stuff and put it into the abstract, and then the attorney then can read it and form an opinion. Knowing something about how long they've been in the property and that kind of thing can help you when you're looking at about how much that's going to be. Let me tell you for sure that on your estimate of proceeds, always go long. Okay, don't try to do it. And for goodness sake, it says estimate. Don't be like some people and put cents. Okay, like $6.28, because it ceases to be an estimate when you put cents on there. Okay, so round it up or down, I don't care, but don't put cents in your estimate of proceeds. Because you're asking then because you're saying I've got it down to the penny basically, and most of us can't do that. So just adjust your abstracting to somewhere between that $400 and maybe $600, and let them know that's a number that you just can't figure. That's totally a variable that has nothing to do with you, and there's no formula for putting it in there, so that you know what abstracting is about. Revenue stamps. Everybody understand revenue stamps?
$1.60.
Huh?
$1.60
It's $1.60 a thousand after you've subtracted the first 500 off the top of the sale price and then rounded it up to that $500 level. So if you get a 169.9 sale, you got to subtract the 500 off the top of that, and then you round it up, so it ends up being 164.5 is where it ends up being. So you take 164 times 1.6. That's your revenue stamps. If you want to be long on that, then just figure it off the sale price. You'll be pretty close.
It's always better to get it out.
Yeah, you guys don't have to remember all the information. I just have to share it all.
You look better if you have, at the end of the day, at closing, they have more money.
Yeah, people are thrilled with $1 over.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
dismayed with $1 under.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's just, it's just human nature. So, special assessments, you can, again, the assessor, when you research your property, you can click in there where it has tax payments, I think it's called. It's the top middle. Anyway, you can go in there and then it has all these things. You can search for assessments and delinquencies and tax sales and anything. It's all in that left-hand column. You just click and it'll show you. It shows you their payment history. If it's been paid on time, if they're behind, it'll show you any late fees that are due at that point in time, that kind of stuff. So when you're looking at your assessor site, getting ready to list, that's a good place to go and check on. Buyer loan costs, closing costs, it's become so common, I usually put something in there. Because it's just, I don't know, from what I'm seeing, I'm starting to see it at least 75% of the time. There's some, we had, there's an agent in my office, they had a buyer that was buying cash and asked for closing costs. I'm like, okay, that doesn't make a lot of sense, but yeah.
What do you think is average that people are asking for? Those have gone up a lot.
Yeah, they have. Usually it's $2,000 to $4,000.
So in this, you figure how you put 4.
Yeah, I think, depending on the price of the home. I mean, you have to be somewhat reasonable. If it's a if it's $150,000 home, I'd probably use maybe 2,500, you know. But if it's a 250, you might use 4,000.
Okay.
You know.
Isn't there a percentage of the sale price that the maximum that somebody can add?
Well, 3% on a conventional loan, 6 on FHA.
Okay.
So those are the maximums that they have to adhere to.
Okay.
And if somebody's trying to do a low cost conventional, they might ask for 3%. You know, the one thing about closing costs when you're accepting an offer, writing an offer, make sure that you put a number on it. Because I've seen, seller to pay closing costs. I'm like, no, I'm not opening that door, because closing costs can be, an inspection, insurance, there's all kinds of things that you can attribute to closing costs. And each lender, I think, has, depending on how they decide what it is. I think federally, these are closing costs, these are actuals, but just always have a number that if you're dealing with, you're going to credit $2,000 at closing as a seller. Okay, so and then attorney's fees. We get it done $75, and they do deed, deck, groundwater. Those things come, from the attorney. And they do that for $75. I always add in the affidavit underneath that. I always add for one affidavit too, so that it ends up being $150. Because you can have a child support, you can have a surviving spouse, you can have an affidavit of identity when your name is the same as somebody else's and there's something on it. So it's pretty easy to get at least one affidavit in a closing. So I always throw that extra $75 in there. Turbine inspection, we put it down as 53. It's typically 49 something on the real. Let's see. $49.95 is what Springer has been charging. So you can put in 50, you can put in 53, whatever. When you get into septic inspection, if it is a property out there, you might want to have to call. I think usually just a basic inspection is like 400, something like that. If it's an older one and they have to dig, sometimes it's a little bit more. So, because the older lateral septic systems, a lot of times the box is below ground, so you might have to dig down a couple of feet to get to the tank, and open that up and be able to look at the distribution box and stuff. So, it's kind of dependent. If it's a clear water system, then, the inspection is just a pump and take a look. So a little bit of variable there if you are dealing with septic inspection. Then we have our settlement fee to the service center. That's for all the work that our closing department does. I think it's pretty cheap for what they end up doing. Yes, sir.
Sump pump inspection. I guess I'm not really quite familiar.
I've never seen one. I'm not sure why it's on there. I've never heard of a sump pump inspection. I've never heard of it being required. At my knowledge, a sump pump inspection is when you pull the two-plug thing out of the wall and you unplug the back one and you plug the front plug in, and then it automatically makes the sump pump run, because the other is the float valve that's like a switch in there. And so I plug that in, it goes, you're like, yep, sump pump works. That's as far as I know, that's a sump pump inspection. And most of the new ones don't have the old float.
I wonder if they might consider changing that to property inspection, but that wouldn't be applied to the seller.
Yeah, it depends. Michelle and I actually try to get our listings to do a pre-inspection every time. It's phenomenal what happens when you do that, the difference in your negotiations. But yeah, we could use that. So you got your settlement fee. I also always put at least a $390 home warranty in there, just so you see it, get a feel for it. they, by putting it here doesn't mean they're committing to it. It just shows it in the numbers. Usually I put 390 in there and I end up paying 420, but it's okay. You're at least showing it to them. In fact, now with the home warranty, when we're with buyer, unless it's like really nice new stuff, I put 569 in and get the home warranty, 420, $75 deductible, and the 7-star. The 7-star at $149, this is my opinion, it has nothing to do with HSA or anything, but in my opinion, it's the best $150 somebody can spend, because it eliminates all those other little roadblocks. And I say that because I had one where people bought a place, and it was, when we closed in like September, something like that. The property had been vacant, because it was a rental property, and then it'd been vacant for a while. And we closed in September, and the guy went to turn on the furnace. We turned it on, at the inspection, and it seemed to be okay. And then something happened, and the guy came out to service it, and he said, "You have a cracked heat exchanger. And so, can't run, so we got to have a new furnace." I'm like, "No problem, called HSA, we've got warranty on that." The problem is that we could not show that that furnace was running at the time because it was not inspected and it didn't have a occupant of the property. So we could not say for sure that that was not cracked earlier. And home inspections, most home inspectors don't open up and look at the heat exchanger. They do superficial, they look at the burners and they look and check the fan, all that kind of stuff, and make sure it runs, but they don't do the heat exchanger. And so he bought a new furnace, and HSA did not help because of that clause. And because of that, I'm like, yeah, we're doing it, because the extra $149 would have been automatically included. So I learned my lesson the hard way.
What would have automatically been included?
That heat exchanger would have been covered.
Okay, so
With-
it just
with the
wouldn't,
set.
it would get rid of that requirement of having an inspection.
Of having to see the heat exchanger, yes. So a normal inspection, you'd still be fine. Otherwise, you gotta find an inspector that actually opens up the furnace and looks at the heat exchanger. And there's a couple that do that, but not very many. Most of the regular ones don't. It's cumbersome to tools and get it.
So you're asking the sellers to pay this for the $590 then, for the
For $569, yeah.
$569 for the 7-star?
Yeah. And depending on the situation, I'll just, up front, if they say there's no way, we'll pay the $420, then I'll write a check for the $149. It's just that important in my mind. I'll write a check for the buyers, because I think it's important that happen. So just make that happen. Okay? So that's a home warranty. Well inspection, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, back to the home warranty.
Yes,
You're currently using HSA
yes.
for all home warranties. I got that for one of my buyers, and it was awful. And then we went to Facebook and saw all these posts, the people not happy.
Yeah.
So I
And
switched,
every inspection company has that
Something like
post on
that.
Facebooks like that,
Gotcha.
because people think they're buying insurance that covers everything,
Mhm.
and they don't. And, that's the thing. That's why I put the 149 on there, because there's no pre-existing condition, there's no rust and corrosion, there's no, you go in there and your dishwasher stops working, and they come out and look at it and say, well, the timer's bad, it has to be replaced. Well, guess what? On the normal one, it doesn't cover clocks and timers and seals, those kinds of things.
This was a break in the main coming out of the house and going to the city lines.
Oh, yeah.
Or
That's
waste coming
that's
out.
never covered.
And yeah, it
it was
was
the
supposed to
city.
be covered in 500 feet out of the home, but he didn't call them first. And
Oh.
he called a contractor first.
Oh.
And because he called the contractor first and not the warranty company, they kicked out all coverage for it.
Yeah.
Right.
So he had the work done,
Mhm.
right? He went ahead.
Started,
Yeah.
began,
Yeah.
the same kind of thing. There were tenants in there.
Yep.
Yeah, raw sewage coming up.
Yep.
So,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, he got
Yeah.
somebody out there, tried to
Yeah.
get it started.
Yeah,
then they
and that'd be
penalized him in
great, but they
essence.
make it abundantly clear that you call the 800 number. The first thing you do is call the 800 number. They give you somebody to get out there.
He didn't get anything at closing. Is that something as the buyer's agent that I should be getting and receiving at closings? I don't ever see that.
I always give them that brochure.
There's a bunch of brochures.
The brochures that we have, and
Yeah.
it's not the warranty itself, but it does show coverage and, you know, those kinds of things. So I always give them a copy of that.
This one?
Yeah, that one right there.
There's a
I
bunch of
always
these
give them
out
that copy because it shows the coverage, and then on the back,
Yeah.
on the very back of that, see all that fine writing? That explains a lot of the exclusions. And if you read through that, you'll find out why I get the $149.
Yeah.
Because,
So don't they get that file? Once you get accepted offer and you're moving forward closing, it's my understanding the service center or contacts HSA.
they certainly do.
And gets that
And
started.
they're supposed to, and then the HSA is supposed to mail out their policy thing and all that kind of stuff, and you're not the
Yeah,
first one. I mean, I've
Yeah.
had it where I'm like, did you get that? And they're like,
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Well, then I went back to the service center and they were able to look at it.
Yeah.
They were able to go back through paperwork they had and at least give us a trail.
Yeah.
Of where to start and a number to call. And
Yeah.
It's helpful.
Yeah, so,
So the service center does, because I've wondered, you know, when you request that, it's the seller's agent that sets up or the seller's side that sets up the HSA warranty.
most of the
Should
time.
be.
So I've wondered, like, what happens if they drop the ball and they don't do it?
Well,
And-
that's one of my things about asking to see the CD, because, you know, buyer site CDs are like secret, top secret anymore, and it's hard to get them. And I tell the buyers, I'm like, you have to tell them that I can see a copy of the CD, because I can't protect you if I can't see it. And so I get a copy of the CD and I look through, it's like, did the warranty get on there? Is the closing cost credited? You know, you just look through that. Now, I'm a firm believer that you should be at closings and you should look at the CD and you should do your own justification with your purchase agreement or any of the addendums, because we have a fiduciary responsibility that we promise in our agency agreement. And if we don't do that, we haven't fulfilled that fiduciary responsibility, you know, because that's what we do.
So do you usually get a copy of the CD prior to closing?
I try to, yes. You know.
And you would request that from?
On listings, you know, we'll get it from Emily,
Yeah.
Emily, whoever you're closing with. On the buyer side, I ask the buyer to tell the lender that I need to be involved in getting, you know, the CD from them. And if worst case scenario is at the closing, I'll say, will you allow me to have a copy of this so I can go over it? And then typically, I mean, most buyers are going to be like, yeah, heck yeah. I mean, they want another set of experienced eyes looking at that document to see, because remember, they sign off that it's okay.
Sure.
You know, and now if somebody's made a mistake, yes, obviously there's a problem with that. You know, so if the lender or whoever's closing for the lender, that kind of stuff, if they make a mistake, certainly there's a chance to go back and do something about it. But yeah, so home warranty, yes. And you know, if you have any kind of problem, did you talk to Roseanne? Because if you have a problem, Roseanne is who is that's our specific person.
Oh,
And she will,
Yeah, I know.
she will do everything she can. She'll talk to you about it.
okay.
You know, she'll figure something out so that in a scenario like that, you know, she may say, listen, you know, we owe this. I mean, it was raw sewage coming up, for crying out loud. Let's have our contractor say how much it would cost, and then we'll give him that much minus the deductible. You know, so sometimes she can work a way around that kind of stuff. That's one of the reasons I use HSA, is because as a company, we use them a lot and we do a lot of business with them, and they like us for that. And so they'll try to
Yeah, I
work with
know
us.
that.
Yeah.
Who would I get her number from?
She's coming in July
Yeah,
for one
she'll
of
be
these
she'll be
weekend
coming in
trainings too.
July
Oh,
to talk about
okay.
things. But Roseanne is awesome, and she'll If she can. If she can't, she's straight up with you. She goes,
Right.
I can't do anything.
That would have been helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I didn't get anywhere.
Yeah. You didn't call. You gotta call.
Do you,
If you call,
do you check your mail at the office? 'Cause
Yes.
They usually she usually
Yes.
sends like a receipt or something from HSA to the
Yeah.
agent saying,
Oh.
thank you for using HSA. Or,
I
Yeah.
can check my mail and I've never received
Yeah, I've
seen
never
any of those.
received that.
Yeah.
I get my
Yeah, she
mail.
usually brings that in. You also get the invoice is
Invoice,
in
that's what I
Dotloop.
was talking about.
Yeah, there, you get the
That's what
invoice
I
is
went back
always in.
to make sure that it was done and
Yeah.
that we started it.
You
So
see,
that is
yeah,
where
you
I-
see it in Dotloop, you see
Mhm.
that the invoice has been done, and then the next step to that is the HUD, where you see that the money was actually taken out to pay that invoice. And
Gotcha.
if those two things have happened, then you're golden,
Okay.
you know. But if it hasn't been ordered, I mean, there's sometimes like checks will go up there and they'll be like, we don't have a warranty on, to pay for it. There's no warranty here. So,
When I did have a situation like that happened,
Yeah.
and so we closed, and so the money doesn't get sent until after the closing, and within like 24 hours, they realized that it was leaking gas, and they were having an issue, and so it never went fully through. So I don't know how. If I were put in that situation again, what the best steps would have been to take, because it turned out it was something that was easy to fix and they didn't have to replace it.
Yeah.
But if they would have had to replace it,
yeah.
should they have just had to wait until the money is received and
No,
the agent will warranty
that's a call to
officially?
Roseanne, and if there's an invoice and you've got a HUD,
Mhm.
no, you're good. They'll be like, oh, yeah, but we know the check's on the way. It's okay.
Okay.
So, and like I said, they will work with you. They're not at opposition with us. They're trying to work with us and make it, But I mean, if you just flat don't do what they tell you to do, of course, they'd be like, well,
Sure.
guess you should have,
And
So,
is her number listed anywhere? Or-
I can find it
I
right
was gonna say, I have it on my phone.
Well, I wanted it.
I've got
Me
it.
too. I was gonna text
You
you.
got Roseanne?
I've got an 800 number, I got a mobile number, I don't know for sure if that's that.
Yeah, it's probably Roseanne. She's gonna be like, what in the hell are you doing, man?
Yeah,
I'm like, I'm hooking you up, girl.
We won't all call her at once.
yeah, every call.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Slowly.
exactly. She'll be like, what is going on? Okay, she is 202-5696.
515.
515-202-5696.
Thank you.
And it's roseanne.paul@onlinehsa.com.
She's almost always at the breakfasts too.
Yeah, she typically is at the breakfast.
Oh,
Yeah.
never seen her. Really? So-
So, I guess we need to have her stand up. and
Yeah.
go,
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Roseanne.
Yeah.
And-
Well, I know
She's done that a while. She did it once last year.
Is there a James
Sure, sure.
Casper?
Jane
Who
Kester.
is this person?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Jane-
no one in my
Jane
office
works
really knew.
with her, yeah.
And we have just a
That's
smaller
what I
one,
got.
not that
Yeah.
big.
And Jane's good. I've known Jane she used to work for Mineral Gardens back in the day.
Oh,
So,
okay, so I've got-
yeah, I've known Jane for a long time, and she'll work hard too. It's just Roseanne's always been my person from even before Jane came on. So, then we have professional fees on there. And,
Wait, did we miss some?
Well,
there's other.
Other, how about the well?
Yeah, oh, that's right. I was
Well,
interrupted when I started doing that.
The well
I'm
is-
just, with the well, what amounts to the well is that the water needs to be tested. Actually, Iowa State Extension, I think, will test it for like free or next to nothing. Do you know?
Yeah,
who
they're-
does it?
Oh,
Huh?
There, man, can you?
Yeah, and you literally take a sample and,
Yeah.
have it tested and it's for potability, which means can you drink it?
Yeah.
And they check and tell you if there's anything. And, and wells they're not really hard. I mean, it's kind of weird thinking, but, there's things like, a well can be shocked where they literally pour chlorine bleach into the well, and it will shock the system, clean it, and it'll go back to functioning properly. You know, but there's been things where, you know, they open up the well and look in there and somehow some animals got in there and ended up in the water and died and all that. Oh, yeah. Yeah,
I think that is
So,
yeah, I remember that.
yeah, so, you know, and then, you know, that has to be cleaned out, and then you have to shock it so that it disinfects all the water again. It's, that's, in essence, that's the same thing that happens at waterworks, is they shock the water so that it cleans it and filters it, and you're back in business again. So, yeah, for well inspection, it's usually not much,
Is that something that's required?
let's see, FHA, I believe, requires a well inspection if that's the only water that it has. If it has a well and it has rural water into the house, they don't care. You know, because you'll find that sometimes we have rural water in the house for drinking and all that kind of stuff, but they still have the active well and they use it for watering or whatever.
Does USDA care?
Yes. Yes,
That-
USDA
they
definitely
do.
cares.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very, and that's because they see a lot, you
Yeah.
know.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I totally
USDA
like that.
really,
I hear it.
really wants to know, and they want to know something about it, you know, is it
Mhm.
functioning properly, blah, blah, blah.
I think some of the counties are trying to eliminate that well though. If you got rural water, they want that well.
They do. If you have water going, you know, in front of the house, they won't, I think there's a deal where they won't allow you to drill a well for, you know, and it's for the greater good. You know, more people on the line, you know, raises more money for and makes it more affordable for all us poor folk. So, yeah, well inspection. I put like, in others, I'll put like fees or courier, that, you know, a couple of things in there like that, and I throw $100 in there. Because every closing we have as a seller, we'll have a courier fee in there of a minimum of $40. And sometimes you'll have the closing company will have a courier, it's a payoff courier fee, where they have the payoff actually couriered to Wells Fargo or whatever. And that's usually $30. So you can easily, good Lord, I'm like sweating like a pig up here. Is what it is. You can easily get to $100 on that other. So I always put that in there. That gives you a little buffer as well. And if you know of any other little things about it, I mean, you know, maybe they're, you know, you make sure that, like, if they're behind on taxes, that you, that kind of thing, if there's, you know, if it's part of the tax sale. Yes, ma'am?
To do a pre-inspection, is that the same cost as what buyers would generally have? Or is it less if you're the seller doing a?
It's a little bit less.
Okay.
You know, and I don't think it's less, but we do home inspection rate on a termite for one charge.
Okay.
Yeah, so we just do it all. And I'm a proponent of that, and the reason why is because right up front, it's like radon.
Yeah.
It's at 7.2. We are not mitigating. It's right up front.
Okay.
It's no, like, we're not mitigating and don't tell us what it is, which you can't do now, but I saw a listing yesterday that had, you know, sellers will not mitigate and do not want any test results. And I'm like, yeah, that doesn't take liability away. So that if you can do that and get the seller to work with that, it makes the negotiation. It doesn't mean that the buyers don't do their own inspection, but you're going to know if there's, like, you know, bad roof or something's wrong here or there. You know, you're going to know it, and that's part of your negotiations. You understand,
Right.
you know, that's going to be a problem.
Well, it's not surprising
because-
coming down the road.
Yeah, we got tired of that thing, is where the inspection and what they asked for depended on the negotiations and what they got. You know, and you know, and I'm guilty of the same thing. I mean, if you bust my chops and work me hard and that kind of stuff and make me pay, you know, top dollar for that listing, then your inspection is going to be pretty detailed. I want stuff fixed. I want it right. And you negotiated saying that, yeah, this is a good house in there. You gotta give me top dollar. Okay. So it eliminates that. And eliminates the radon discussion, because if it comes in at 22, guess what? You're mitigating, because nobody's gonna buy it with a 22. I mean, virtually nobody was gonna buy that, because the level is 4, and if the basement's at 22, the main floor is at 11. And the top floor is even above. Because if it's at 11, that means the top floor is at 5.5.
Has anybody ever done that testing though on the top floor?
Yeah.
That you're aware of?
No, this is just what they say, is that at each floor it gets cut in half. And there's all kinds of factors. It's like, is there a return air in the basement? At my house, I have a return air in the basement. So that means that the basement air is circulated and up through the whole house. Which is great when it's cool in the basement and hot upstairs. It does that, but also if there's radon, which is why my wife is like busting my chops to have the radon thing done.
So, pre-inspection, what kind of numbers are you seeing for cost? For all those items?
500? I can't tell you for sure.
I use Hawkeye, $359.
Yeah.
For radon and for home inspection.
Yeah. And we use, because we wanted a real heavy duty name for a pre-inspection.
Okay.
We use Amerispec just because they're big, they're there, we go, hey, we need an inspection tomorrow, and they're like, no problem, gotcha. Because they have so many inspectors they can move around and stuff. So we use them. I'm just a huge proponent because I've seen the difference it makes. It's ridiculous when your negotiations up front are just, here's all the stuff, okay, now let's talk. So I like it a lot. Professional fees, if you can't figure, the percentage of a certain amount, then you shouldn't be a realtor, because that should be in your head. You should know 5, 6, and 7 of every number. So, and we're talking about things, make sure people know that, when I had the question come up yesterday. They're like, well, and they were new buyers, and they're like, well, don't realtors try to get the most money possible out of the house because you get more commission that way? And like when you're selling it, you get more commission like that. And I said, okay, look, for every 1,000, there's 50, 60, or $70 worth of commission, and that's split in half between 2 agents. So, if that was the case, and I got you to pay $5,000 more for the house, I'm going to get what, $100 or $150 or something. It's like, no. I mean, that's just doesn't hold water. So, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But you can do, I've done where the estimate of proceeds, where I put that at the bottom, or where it'd be like based on the revenue stamps, which are a percentage, and commission, which is a percentage. And so that percentage. So I'll put right on the bottom of that an explanation that says, for every 1,000 more that you get, or for every 1,000 less that you get, you'll get $930 out of that, or whatever. So you can figure that for them, and it makes them like, okay, gives them some understanding of where they're at. So, like, a little piece of paper with some numbers on it has a lot of stuff in it, and I encourage you, and I brought these around, and you can pass these back and forth and look at them. But this is an Alta, and what it does is it shows you every cost on the back 2 pages. It shows you every cost that the seller has paid, and I encourage you to get Altas, at closings, and then review them, look at them. Bless you. But get Altas at closings, at least CDs if you have to. With sellers, you always get the CD. But go over those numbers and see what they are and what you paid for, and recording fees and all these different things. See what they are, so that in your mind you know where money tends to go, in a transaction, and it'll make your estimate of proceeds even better, because you'll start recognizing situations that you say, oh, you know, I probably ought to throw an extra 100 in there. Somebody's, you got to chase down an X and get a sign off. You know it up front because you know they're divorced, you know there's child support, in your conversation, in your initial interview, when you're talking to a seller, that's part of getting to know them and understanding how the transaction can go. Any questions that weren't asked?
No.
Any?
I've never seen them.
You've never seen one of those?
No.
You should have one on every closing.
I've never gotten.
Well, I've never been to closing yet.
This would be so.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay, so now you're ahead of the game.
Close, but sometimes they'll just give it to you,
Yeah,
I've never gotten one.
which is nice, but.
so I always
So
ask
who do I ask?
the closing
Closer.
attorney or whoever it is that you're closing with.
Wow,
And
that
if
would be
it's-
helpful.
If it's your listing, then that is sitting in your dot loop.
Well, is that a
Okay.
requirement? Is that not, some brokerages, if you don't have some of those closing docs, they'll put a hold on getting paid.
Well, ours is one of those brokerages. If you don't have a CD turned in,
CD stand for, what's CD?
closing disclosure.
Thank you.
It used to be a HUD, and then it went to CDs, and there's
Okay.
seller CD and buyer CD. And then there's the ALTA, and that's the, something land title
American
association.
Land
American
Title
Land Title
Title.
Association. So that's why it's called an ALTA. And what it does is it takes all the sensitive information off.
Okay.
Leaves that sensitive information on the CD, and it just pulls the numbers off and puts it in, and it reads and works just like a HUD used to.
But the service center wants the CD though, right?
They want an ALTA or a CD or something, yeah. Yeah, because their thing, and I'm exploring that a little bit, because there's something going on where, because of the privacy things, we're not getting it sometimes from buyers. And because of the privacy, and I've got an agent right now, and she can't get paid because, the accounting is like, we can't pay if we don't have a CD. I'm like, Iowa Realty sends commission checks without CDs. So if they do that, they must not require it on their stuff. So I'm exploring this a little bit. Because I'm like, there has to be maybe an alternate way if you just can't get a CD. There has to be an alternate way of having the commission paid. Just saying.
So the professional fees would be like photographer?
No, that's commission.
Oh, the professional fees is the commission?
That's commission. Yep. And you want to be, when it says professional fee, I like to go, and the professional fee, that's commission, right? And then they go, yeah, we know.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, just want to make sure.
Do you lower your commission?
Do I lower it?
Doing most of them at 7 or 6? Or?
We can't have that discussion here.
Okay.
No, we can, because we're a single company, so we're okay. In board of directors, if somebody says commission, everybody's like, because it's multiple companies.
Gotcha.
So we can't have that discussion. Right now, because of the shortage of listings, that I have actually taken listings at 6 now. And that was like an absolute no way in hell is that going to happen. Unless you've sold multiple houses with me, or you're, that kind of stuff. So I have lowered,
but not lower
taken
than 6.
listings. No, we did one at 5 because it was a super friend of my partner, and
Friends and family.
it was all that kind of stuff. And of course, it's just been horrendous.
It's probably the worst one.
It's terrible. But yeah, and nobody in the company will tell you, because we're about you being an entrepreneur and making your own decisions and that kind of stuff. But I firmly believe that we earn our money. I mean, we really do. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. And every once in a while, yeah, one's like bang, 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 done, you know, and it's like, whoa, that was like really crazy. But then that'll get made up for on the other end where, you know, you're getting, you know, you're having to sell somebody else's listing, you're only getting 2.5%. I mean, you work on it for 3 months, you know, the closing was delayed 4 times.
And it's $100,000.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Awesome.
I mean, it's your business, so you make decisions, but don't devalue yourself. And that's my thing, is just don't devalue yourself. You know, that it's being done a lot. And, you know, have your ammunition ready when you sit and talk with somebody. You really need to know what you do. And if you just start writing down what you do, just start writing down everything you do, you'll be like, holy crap, that's a lot of stuff. And then on top of all the stuff we do, then the knowledge that you have to accumulate. To be a good agent takes a lot of knowledge. You know, you just keep packing and packing and packing and packing more stuff in there. And you come to classes like this to learn, you know, what other people like, well, estimate of proceeds, that's not too, you know. No, it is complicated. There's a lot about it and a lot of things that means a lot, and it has something to do with people's lives. And if you misfigure something in here, you don't know what you're doing, and you misfigure, and you get to the closing table, and they're having to write a check, somebody's not going to be happy, you know? I mean, and I did things, I listed a property one time, gave an estimate proceeds, and they're like, yeah, this is great. And we went on down the line, guess what I forgot?
Commission?
Commission.
Oh.
That's what I
Guess who did it totally free?
Oh.
Absolutely every dime of it was
That
free.
would happen.
Oh my God.
Because
Would.
that was the numbers.
Right?
I gave it to them.
Oh, that I quoted.
Yep, it was completely free.
This isn't subject to change.
It certainly is. Yeah.
Wow.
You know, and you know, I could have done that. I'm way too prideful of a person. If I screw up in it, I just eat it and go, all right, that's how it goes. So.
Good lesson.
Give me all of your friends and families.
Yeah, exactly.
That brings up a good point. I mean, I can, you know, when, you know, you mentioned being in Minnesota and having an estimate of proceeds. When you do this and you get done and you haven't filled in a blank, you know, there should be a message. Are you sure you haven't filled in the commission and professional fees? Or, you know, little messages, because a lot of times Dotloop does the same thing. Dotloop will say, do you...
Yeah, and I understand where you're going and what's going on.
That's just kind of
The only thing I can say is that we're in a business where we shouldn't have to idiot-proof everything.
Well,
I just don't think we need to.
well,
We
Dotloop
are professional.
has kind of moved
It
that
has,
direction.
and I've
I'm
got
just
some
saying.
issues, there. And so I understand that. But, you know, when we're talking to clients and that kind of stuff, you know, we get paid good money. And we do it with a lot of work and a lot of risk and all that kind of stuff. But the bottom line is we shouldn't have to idiot-proof things. We get paid for being smart and understanding what's going on and sharing that with people. Okay? Thanks for coming today. I hope something out of this came through and made some kind of sense.
Good job.
Anytime you guys got questions about something, you're like, oh, what did you say? Or how'd that work? Or